Honourable members, there will now be a moment for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Honourable members, before we proceed with today's business, order, honourable members. Before we proceed with today's business, I wish to announce that I've been informed by the Umkhonto weSizwe party that it has designated Ms. P. Mkhize as the new Chief Whip of the Opposition. Congratulations, member.
Naye uzobuya akhala. Naye uzobuya akhala.
Angeni indaba zethu, ungangeni indaba zethu wena.
Naye uzobuya akhala very
Phuma kithi.
Order,
Tegeza
honourable members.
kindaba.
And please, honourable members, do not switch on your microphones if you have not been recognised. Honourable Mhloli.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I was just checking if there's another announcement about the General Holomisa where he's sitting there. Is there an announcement there? for the
Across the floor.
Honourable Mhloli, that is not a point of order, but you can later on ask the question when we do have a break. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans on Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill.
I now recognise the Honourable the Chief Whip.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? I do not see any objections. Agreed to. Honourable Douglas, you are a bit late.
Please note the objections of MKP. Thank you.
Honourable members, please raise the objections when asked, because I now have to go back on the fact that it is agreed to, but I do take it that you do have a new Chief Whip, so hopefully you will be guiding her. Honourable members, therefore, with the one objection of the MK, the report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Second reading debate, Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill.
I now invite the Honourable Deputy Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Honourable Holomisa, to the podium.
Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members, it is my privilege to table before this House the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill for its second reading and consideration. The bill before us is a necessary and important legislative intervention aimed at strengthening South Africa's military justice system and ensuring that it remains fully compliant with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The need for the amendment arises from the judgment of the Constitutional Court in the matter of O'Brien versus Minister of Defence and Military Veterans and others, which was delivered in December 2024. The court found that certain provisions relating to the appointment, assignment, and removal of military judges did not sufficiently safeguard the institutional independence required of judicial officers for the military judges and senior military judges. The executive authority has carefully considered the judgment and has brought forward the amendment bill to address the concerns raised by the court while preserving the effectiveness and integrity of the military justice system. Honorable members, discipline remains one of the fundamental pillars upon which every professional military organization is built. The South African National Defence Force is no exception. However, discipline must always be administered through mechanisms that are fair, impartial, transparent, and constitutionally compliant. The bill therefore introduced measures that strengthen the independence of the military judges by establishing the Military Judges Judicial Advisory Council, as an independent statutory body. The committee will play a central role in matters relating to the assignment and removal of military judges and senior military judges, thereby enhancing the credibility and integrity of the military justice system. These amendments are not intended to weaken command and control within the Defence Force. On the contrary, they strengthen military discipline by ensuring that those entrusted with administering military justice are able to do so independently and without any perception of undue influence. A military justice system that commands confidence from both members of the Defence Force and the public is indispensable to the maintenance of discipline, good order, and military effectiveness. The bill has undergone an extensive parliamentary process until this stage where we are today. I wish to express my appreciation to the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans for its diligent participation process, engaged stakeholders, considered submissions, and undertook detailed deliberations to ensure that the final product before this House is constitutionally sound and fit for purpose. The amendment thus reflects the commitment of the Government of National Unity to strengthen constitutional governance, enhancing accountability, and ensuring that all institutions of the state operate within framework prescribed by our Constitution. Finally, I therefore commend the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill to this House and respectfully request honorable members to support this adoption. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Lechuete.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me rise on the protocol as appreciated by the High Table. On behalf of the revolutionary movement, the midwife of all democracies in the continent, the first revolutionary movement to stand against apartheid colonialism throughout the continent, on behalf of the African National Congress of President Oliver Tambo, the pioneer of the Constitution that we celebrate today in our 30 years. Today, as we debate the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill, we do so during a significant year in the history of our nation. In 2026, we celebrate 30 years of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, a constitution born out of struggle, sacrifice, and a collective determination to build a democratic society founded on equality and freedom. 30 years ago, our people adopted a constitution that placed the rule of law at the center for democracy. It established a clear principle that no person and no institution is above the law. It created a constitutional order based on equality and openness. Through this bill, we reaffirm the commitment and continue to work in ensuring that every institution in the state reflects the values of our constitutional democracy. Honorable members, the bill before us is a direct response to the Constitutional Court judgment delivered in the O'Brien versus the Minister of Defense and military veterans and others in a matter that was concluded by the Concord on December 2024. In that judgment, the court found that the certain provisions governing the military judges did not adequately protect judicial independence. The court reminded us that military courts are courts required by law and recognized, and that military judges perform judicial functions that require appropriate safeguards. The remedial action contained in the bill is necessary to address the constitutional deficiencies identified by the Concord. The previous framework created a risk of the rest of the perceived interference in the military justice system because military judges lack sufficient security of tenure and institutional independence. Therefore, the bill demonstrates our commitment to strengthening constitutional governance while preserving the discipline and the effectiveness that are essential to a military services. The bill introduces several important reforms in the remedial actions. Firstly, it establishes an independent military judiciary advisory committee chaired by a High Court judge. This committee will provide advice on matters relating to the appointment and conditions of service of military judges. In doing so, it strengthens transparency and protects the judicial officers from undue influence. Secondly, the bill provides greater security of tenure through the introduction of a fixed, non-renewable terms. Judicial officials must be able to perform their duties without fear, favor, or prejudice. By strengthening their independence, we enhance confidence in the military justice system. Thirdly, the bill creates a clearer institutional safeguard to ensure that the military judges can carry out their responsibilities independently while remaining part of the disciplined military environment. This ensures alignment with the provisions of the Constitution, Section 200, subsection 1, which says in this country, as part of constitutional democracy, we will build one of the most disciplined military forces. There are complementary principles. A professional military requires discipline, but discipline must always be exercised within the framework of justice and legality. A soldier who appears before a military court must have the confidence that the process is fair and impartial. Commander must have confidence that the disciplinary decisions are credible and respected. The public must have confidence that the military justice system operates in accordance with the provisions of the supreme law of the Republic, which is our Constitution, which celebrates 30 years today. By strengthening judicial independence, this bill strengthens the legitimacy of military discipline. It reinforces the integrity of military courts, contributes to the professionalism of the South African National Defence Force. This legislation also speaks to the broader challenges facing the Defence Force. As we continue working to strengthen the National Defence Force, We must ensure that it remains capable, professional, and responsive to the demands of the changing security environment in the globe today. We must also continue building a military institution that reflects the constitutional values of equality, dignity, and respect. The fight against corruption, misconduct, and gender-based violence remains central in strengthening the credibility of the South African National Defence Force. A professional defence force requires strong systems of accountability and justice. The bill is another important step in the journey. It demonstrates that our democracy has the capacity to reform itself, strengthen its institution, and respond to the constitutional imperatives. As the ANC, we remain committed in building a capable, ethical, and developmental state as set by our Commander-in-Chief and the President of the Republic, His Excellency Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. We remain committed to strengthening democratic governance and promoting accountability across all sectors of government, including the National Defence Force. I therefore call upon honourable members of this House to support the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill and its aim to align defence legislation with the constitutional imperative. Let us use this occasion to reaffirm our commitment to constitutional supremacy, judicial independence, and the rule of law. Let us continue building institutions that service our people with integrity and professionalism, in particular the National Defence Force, which is the first line of defense and the last line of defense, and the most disciplined organization according to the provision of the Constitution, Section 200, subsection 1. Let us strengthen the South African National Defence Force and the constitutional democracy that exists, that we must also defend, not only the constitutional democracy, but our people, our republic, our territorial integrity, our sovereignty, our constitution, all the laws, including international laws. It's our responsibility as the National Defence Force in terms of Section 200, subsection 2, to defend all those particular needs of our people, because at any time, peace is not permanent. At any time, even our nation can be attacked, it can be annexed. There's even now a chance by the criminal element to undermine our democracy, including the safety of our people. But we can only achieve
Honourable
in fighting
Member,
back
your
by
time
ensuring
has
that we have a
expired.
credible National Defence Force with credible laws, which are inconsumate with the objectives of our Constitution and the spirit of our Constitution. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Kubukeli.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, as I rise today on behalf of Umkondo Wesizwe, this House is required to discharge a constitutional obligation. The Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill is before Parliament because the Constitutional Court has declared aspects of the military justice system invalid. The court held that the current framework where military judges are appointed, advanced, disciplined, and removed by the same command authority whose decisions they may be required to adjudicate is constitutionally impermissible. The defect is structural. It violates separation of powers, undermines independence, creates a reasonable apprehension of bias, and offends the rule of law. A judicial officer cannot be subordinate to the executive authority, whose conduct they must review. Independence is structural, not symbolic. It requires insulation from executive influence, transparent appointments, secure tenure, and protection from interference. The existing framework fails these requirements. The bill corrects that failure. It strengthens the Military Court of Appeal, clarifies appointment and tenure, and aligns the Defense Force with constitutional standards. But, Honorable Deputy Speaker, judicial independence cannot survive within an institution in constitutional decline. The Constitution binds the Defense Force, its command structures, its administration, and its treatment of soldiers. Where it fails, Parliament must intervene. Not far from where we are is Fort Ikapa, a military base which houses soldiers deployed to reinforce the South African police services. It is in an unbearable condition with leaking roofs, collapsed sanitation, cold water, and living conditions that cannot withstand scrutiny under the Bill of Rights. These are not operational shortcomings. They are constitutional violations. A defense force that cannot maintain its own facilities cannot credibly enforce discipline or sustain judicial independence. And Honorable Speaker, this is part of a broader pattern in the state. We have seen, even in yesterday's South African Police Service briefings, a growing instinct to speak the language of state security rather than constitutional accountability. Citizens are framed as risks before they are recognized as right bearers. The state appears more comfortable warning the public than acknowledging its own failures. A government that fears its citizens more than it fears violating the Constitution cannot credibly enforce discipline within the Defense Force. Parliament must therefore ensure that soldier living conditions meet constitutional minimum standards, that command structures are accountable, and that administration supports and does not undermine judicial independence. Umkhonto weSizwe submits that implementation must be accompanied by a constitutional rectification program, an audit of soldier living conditions, a national restoration plan, a command accountability framework, and quarterly reporting to Parliament. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the defect is structural, the violation is constitutional, and the remedy is mandatory. As I conclude, Honorable Deputy Speaker, it becomes necessary to address a grave constitutional breach, the unauthorized engagements between the Western Cape government, the city of Cape Town, and the soldiers of the United States Marines. It constitutes a direct violation of the National Executive's duty to safeguard the Republic's sovereignty and maintain the constitutional chain of command. The US Marines are not a neighborhood training outfit. They are the Special Forces arm of the United States Armed Forces. And the danger becomes undeniable when we test the logic. If the DA in the Western Cape may summon the United States Marines, then the ANC in the Eastern Cape may summon Cuba, and the IFP in KZN may summon Israel. At that moment, the Republic ceases to function as a unitary state. Foreign military engagement is an exclusive national competence. No province may negotiate it. No municipality may operationalize it. No political party may appropriate it. Any attempt to do so fractures the Republic. On these same Western Cape shores, Iran, a sworn adversary of the United States, recently participated in a military exercise, creating diplomatic tension between DECO, the Presidency, and the Defence Force. Against that backdrop, the DA-led Western Cape's invitation of the Marines resembles geopolitical appeasement, a signal to Washington that we are still with you, do not abandon us. Honorable Deputy Speaker, this pattern of unauthorized foreign military engagement borders on the kind of external interference and regime change behavior that the United States has been accused of perpetuating globally. South Africa cannot allow any province to open the door, even inadvertently, to geopolitical manipulation. Our constitutional order cannot be exposed to the vulnerabilities that have destabilized other nations. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it must further be stated for the record that the conduct of the DA in the Western Cape increasingly resembles the creation of an Orania-like enclave, a province seeking to exercise self-government outside the constitutional framework. The pattern is unmistakable. Parallel authority, unilateral foreign military engagements, and a political posture that treats national sovereignty as optional. It is for this reason that Umkhonto weSizwe has advanced the position that the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape should be reunified into a single Cape province, restoring constitutional coherence and preventing the rise of self-governing enclaves. The Presidency is the apex custodian of national security and foreign relations authority. Where a province intrudes into exclusive national competencies, the Presidency is constitutionally obliged to assess the breach, determine accountability, and ensure non-recurrence. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we therefore demand to know what accountability measures were applied. Was an inquiry instituted? Were directives issued? Were violations recorded? Were any officials sanctioned? Was the matter escalated to the security cluster or cabinet? This is a matter of national strategic importance. Umkhonto weSizwe places it on record that the Presidency must account fully and transparently. The Republic cannot sustain a defense system where constitutional violations occur without consequences. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we cannot restore military justice as an isolated phenomenon, while the broader constitutional architecture remains compromised. Discipline in the Defence Force cannot be rebuilt on foundations that are themselves unstable. The Constitution requires coherence, lawful command, lawful administration, lawful governance. The Military Discipline Amendment Bill fulfills a judicial directive,
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your
but
time
its
has
success
expired.
depends on the constitutional integrity of the institution. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Hutton.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, today we debate a bill that owes its existence to a constitutional court judgment and to the persistence of one serving officer who refused to abandon a principle. At first glance, the Military Disciplinary Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill appears to be a technical piece of legislation dealing with military judges, appointments, assignments, and disciplinary procedures. But this bill is about something much greater. It is about the Constitution, it's about the rule of law, it is about judicial independence, and it is about the courage required to defend constitutional principles, even when doing so come at a personal and professional cost. The story behind this bill is a story of Lieutenant Colonel Kevin O'Brien, As a serving military judge and officer with 3 decades of service, Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien raised concerns about aspects of military justice system that allowed executive influence over military judges. He questioned whether military judges could truly be independent when they served on renewable assignments, when executive authorities could investigate judges through boards of inquiry, and when judges could be removed without an independent process. Many people would have remained silent or chosen a safer path. Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien did not. He challenged the system from within, despite the personal and professional consequences, and the risks were significant. He found himself opposed by the Minister of Defence, the Chief of the SANDF, and the institution to which he had devoted his professional life, yet he persisted. This was not about rank, position, or personal advancement. It was about ensuring that military justice complies with the Constitution and that every member of the SANDF who appears before a military court receives a fair hearing before an independent judicial officer. The Constitutional Court captured the essence of this case in the Potsani versus Minister of Defence when it stated, "Modern soldiers in a democracy are not mindless automatons. They are to be thinking men and women imbued with the values of the Constitution." Those words captures precisely what happened in this case. Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien did not act against the Constitution. He acted because of the Constitution, the very Constitution we celebrated and commemorated in this House this morning. He believed that military disciplines and constitutional accountability are not opposing principles, but complementary ones. By challenging aspects of the military justice system that allowed executive interference in judicial functions, he sought to strengthen confidence in military justice and uphold the constitutional values that every member of the SANDF is sworn to defend. He lost in the High Court, and he lost in the Supreme Court of Appeal. Many would have accepted defeat. He did not. He continued because he believed that the principles at stake were bigger than any individual. Ultimately, the Constitutional Court vindicated the central concerns he had raised. The court declared unconstitutional provisions of the act that allowed executive authorities to investigate military judges through boards of inquiry, assign them on renewable terms, and remove them without an independent inquiry and recommendation. The Constitutional Court affirmed a simple but vital principle. Military justice must be independent of executive interference. At its heart, the O'Brien case asks whether military judges should be protected from the executive influence through an independent process. The Constitutional Court answered that question, and today, this bill is Parliament's response. The significance of this judgment extends far beyond one officer. Every soldier, every commander, and every South African has an interest in ensuring that military courts operate according to constitutional principles. An independent military judiciary does not weaken discipline. It strengthens discipline, legitimacy, and confidence in military justice. For the first time, this legislation establishes a military judicial advisory committee chaired by a judge designated by the Chief Justice and supported by experienced legal professionals. Appointments and removals of military judges will now be subjected to a more independent process, while military judges will receive non-renewable 7-year assignments that address one of the Constitutional Court's principal concerns. These reforms do not remove civilian control of the military, nor should they. But they do strengthen the separation between those who command and those who adjudicate. They reduce the possibility of executive influence over judicial functions, and they strengthen confidence in the fairness and independence of military justice. At the same time, Parliament must remain vigilant. Judicial independence is not achieved merely because legislation says so. It must be protected, respected, and defended in practice. As this new system is implemented, Parliament must ensure that no indirect mechanisms emerge that undermine these reforms or the spirit of the Constitutional Court judgment. History often remembers ministers, generals, and commanders. Less often does it remember individuals who quietly insist that institutions live up to constitutional standards. Had Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien remained silent or accepted defeat after losing in the courts, this bill and these protections would not have been before Parliament today. This bill is not a victory for Kevin O'Brien. It is a victory for every soldier who one day may stand before a military court and expect justice to be independent. It is a victory for constitutionalism, the rule of law, and the principle that a disciplined military force and a constitutional military force are one and the same. Today, by passing this bill, we affirm that military justice must be independent, that military justice must be protected from improper executive interference, and that the South African National Defence Force is strongest when it's firmly rooted in the Constitution. The Democratic Alliance supports the acceptance of this bill. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The next speaker is the Honourable Diale.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief, officials, commissars, ground forces of the EFF, and members of progressive left organizations in Parliament. Honourable Deputy Speaker, indeed, this bill is a product of the ruling of Constitutional Court in O'Brien versus Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, the 2024 decision. We worked insistently in the Portfolio Committee of Defence and Military Veterans to ensure that both the spirit and the letter of the judgment are encapsulated in these amendments. The Economic Freedom Fighters therefore rises in support of the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill. This bill gives practical effect to the Constitutional Court order. The court declared Section 15 of the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Act unconstitutional because it empowered the minister, acting on the recommendation of the Adjutant General, to assign military judges for short, renewable periods. The arrangement kept military judges in a state of perpetual dependence on the executive, violating the constitutional requirements of judicial independence and security of tenure. The bill therefore corrects that defect. It establishes the Military Judicial Advisory Committee, which brings together the military legal practitioners, members drawn from the judiciary and the legal profession, and the Sergeant Major of the South African National Defence Force to advise on assignments. It sets a minimum assignment period of 3 years and introduces a mandatory 2-year cooling-off period before any reassignment may be considered. These changes move military judicial appointments away from direct executive discretion and towards a more structured institutional process. Deputy Speaker, the Portfolio Committee considered this bill together with extensive public submissions. Comments from serving officers, legal academics, trade unions, representative and concerned citizens raised important questions about the composition of the Military Judicial Advisory Committee, the length of judicial terms, and the need for transparent nomination and removal procedures. The Economic Freedom Fighters engaged those submissions seriously. We argued for the strongest possible protection of military judicial independence from both the executive authority and the South African National Defence Force command structure. While the bill does not incorporate every proposal, it constitutes a substantial and necessary advance. The creation of an advisory committee that includes independent legal voices, the longer minimum term, and the explicit cooling-off requirement are concrete steps towards compliance with the Constitutional Court order. The department has indicated that regulations will elaborate on the nomination processes, eligibility criteria, and removal procedures. The EFF will monitor those regulations closely to ensure that they do not reintroduce executive dominance. The independence of the military judges cannot be secured in isolation. That is why the Companion Defence Amendment Bill is inseparable from the legislation before us. The bill inserts Section 102, capital A, into the Defence Act expressly excluding military judges and senior military judges from boards of inquiry that investigate the content or merits of the judgments and rulings. The provision directly implements the Constitutional Court's declaration that Section 101 and Section 102 of the Defense Act were unconstitutional to the extent that they permitted the executive to convene boards of inquiry into military judges. We supported this exclusion in the Portfolio Committee because boards of inquiry must remain focused on operational, logistical, and disciplinary matters that properly fall within the military command structure. They must never become instruments through which the executive or senior officers second-guess or penalize judicial officers for substance of their ruling. By removing judicial functions from the scope of the boards of inquiry, we separate the investigative power of the executive from the adjudicative independence of the military judiciary. This separation is essential if military courts are to function as courts envisaged under Section 166E of the Constitution. Honorable members, the Economic Freedom Fighters has consistently championed the principle that administration of military judge must insulate an undue influence by the South African National Defence Force hierarchy and by political executive authority. We have done so because we understand the genuine transformation of Defence Force requires institutions that are accountable, transparent, and independent, where Constitution demands independence. A judiciary that must look to the executive for renewal of its mandate, or that fears investigation into content of judgments, cannot dispense justice without fear or favor. The bill read together with the Defence Amendment Bill begins to translate that principle into law. It responds to the complaints raised during public participation and in the Portfolio Committee during new institutional safeguards. Further refinement through regulations will strengthen it further. The Economic Freedom Fighters therefore supports the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill. We call on the House to pass it without delay so that the constitutional lacuna identified by the court can be filled and so that military judges may discharge their duties with the security of tenure and institutional independence that our Constitution requires. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Tebekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The IFP supports the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill because no person, including those in our defense and police forces, should be beyond the rule of law. The President has deployed 2,200 South African National Defense Force soldiers to 5 provinces across the country. With this deployment made to support combat crime, the people must be able to trust that the military themselves can be held accountable. South Africans must be able to believe that the military's judicial system is independent, fair, and insulated from improper influence. The bill responds directly to the Constitutional Court's judgment in O'Brien versus Minister of Defense and Military Veterans and others. Guided by this judgment, the bill is a necessary constitutional correction to ensure judicial independence within the military justice system. The IFP then welcomes the establishment of the Military Judicial Advisory Committee. This brings a clear and more independent process for the assignment and removal of military judges and senior military judges. The bill also brings legal expertise into the process through a chairperson who is a judge, while still retaining the participation of senior defense leaders. This is a needed balance. The South African National Defense Force operations must be transparent and resistant to improper interference, while it is also being disciplined and operationally effective. The IFP recognizes that the military justice process should reflect the same constitutional discipline that underpins the Judicial Service Commission, and independent appointments and removals from reduces the space of political interference and strengthens public confidence that no institution stands above the long arm of the law. In a constitutional democracy, accountability must reach every sphere of the state, including the military, because there can be no parallel system of justice for different parts of our society. The IFP therefore advocates for a stronger, more accountable South African National Defence Force, a zero-tolerance approach to corruption, and a more professional institutional structure. We therefore support this bill because it is exactly the kind of reform South Africa needs. It strengthens institutions, protects the rule of law, and supports the state that is disciplined enough to serve the people with integrity. I thank you, Chair.
The next speaker is the Honourable Van Wyk.
Speaker of the House, honourable members, fellow South Africans. The Patriotic Alliance supports the report of the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans, or on the Military Disciplines Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill. This bill strengthens the framework of the South African National Defence Force, ensuring that this bill is upheld in a manner that is fair, constitutional, and aligned with the modern defense requirements. A defense force is essential for national security, operational readiness, and public trust. But this bill must be consistent, transparent, and applied without fear or favor. From the Patriotic Alliance perspective, this bill is an important step towards restoring professionalism and accountability within the SANDF, but it must also correct long-standing patterns of exclusion that has affected members from marginalized communities, including the so-called colored communities, who have served with loyalty yet remain underrepresented in the SANDF and often overexposed to unfair processes. We further call on the Department of Defense to pair with legislative reform with broader institutional improvements, including leadership development, proper resourcing, and support system for soldiers and military veterans. Honorable House Chair, I'm reading this speech here, and to be quite honest, I don't want to do this. I actually want to speak about the military veterans that we have in this house here today. They are sitting there at the back. They are from the SASSA. Now, with the transition between 1994 and 1996, they were excluded. Everybody from APLA, MK, AZAPO, they were integrated into the South African National Defence Force, except for the SASSA. Today, I have invited them here. They have traveled very long to come here to Parliament so we can come and ask the Deputy Minister, in the absence of the Honourable Minister, why were they never integrated? So this speech here, I don't have time for it. The fact of the matter is, our SASSA is here. Die ding wat dat in kleerlinge gediskrimineer word, is sommer pure nonsens. Hulle is hierso en dan moet saam met hulle gepraat word die vandag. So, Speaker, unfortunately, this one here, ek haal het af van die record af. Die SASSA is hierso. Hulle soek hulle antwoorde. Baie dankie, ons bysan nie.
The Honourable Wessels.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, we all know that our armed forces is in a crisis, and one step to fix it is to restore discipline. And one way to restore discipline, or what is crucial to restore discipline, is to have functional military courts which are independent and are free from being abused by high-ranking officials, but are also there to serve their purpose to bring transgressors and serve the purpose with regards to anybody that transgress. The O'Brien judgment is a landmark judgment, as many speakers in this debate has alluded to. And it is also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, significant that we are considering this amendment bill on the day that we are commemorating 30 years of our codified constitution, as it highlights the very important issue that just because a principle is contained in our codified constitution and it is not enacted in practice in all spheres, it actually remains redundant and it does not improve the livelihoods and the South Africa as a whole. The unconstitutionality of this act was highlighted by the Constitutional Court and also the constatation by the Department and the Minister that military courts aren't courts were also dealt with by the Constitutional Court, and that must be welcomed. These are courts, they have jurisdiction, and they deal with very important matters, especially, Honourable Deputy Speaker, in terms of gender-based violence within the military. And that is why these courts must be independent and functional, so that it also deals with those matters without interference by high-ranking officials, but also by the executive. There should be independence, there should be the constitutional principle of the separation of powers should be enacted in these courts. We welcome the judgment, we welcome this bill addressing the mischief, and the Freedom Front Plus supports the bill. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Nkobeni.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, as well as members. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this bill is not expansion of the powers of the South African National Defence Force. It is a necessary response to the Constitutional Court's O'Brien judgment, which found that aspects of the military justice system lacked sufficient safeguards to guarantee the independence of military judges. This bill therefore seeks to address those deficiencies through the establishment of the Military Judicial Advisory Committee to make recommendations regarding the appointment, assignment, and removal of military judges and senior military judges. It is for this reason that Action SA supports this objective. In fact, we believe that this bill represents an important step towards strengthening the legitimacy of the military justice system and ensuring that those entrusted with administering justice within the SANDF do so free from improper influence. The SANDF performs a critical constitutional function. It protects our sovereignty, safeguards our borders, and contributes to national security. Those entrusted with administering military justice must therefore be independent, impartial, and free from undue influence. We therefore welcome the introduction of a more transparent and structured process for the assignment and removal of military judges, which strengthens confidence in military courts and aligns the system with constitutional requirements. While Action SA supports this reform and welcomes the strengthening of judicial independence within the SANDF, Parliament cannot ignore the broader challenges confronting our defense force. Today, South Africa's defense capability faces serious challenges. Our soldiers are repeatedly asked to do more with less. infrastructure is deteriorating, operational readiness is under pressure, and accountability failures continue to undermine public confidence. But the greatest threat to any institution is not always found beyond its borders. Sometimes it is found within. It is found when those entrusted with responsibility fail in their duty. It is found when leaders ask for sacrifice from those in uniform while failing to uphold the same standards of accountability for themselves. That is not merely poor administration, it is a betrayal of trust. The AG's report's findings regarding weaknesses in asset management and financial controls should concern every South African, because a state that cannot account for its resources will ultimately struggle to account to its people, which is why it is regrettable that the minister is not present in this House today. Accountability cannot be demanded from soldiers and officials while those entrusted with political leadership are absent from scrutiny. Respect for Parliament is demonstrated through presence and accountability. Honorable Deputy Speaker, a military court must never be seen as an extension of command. It must be seen as an extension of justice. Because when justice becomes vulnerable to influence, discipline becomes vulnerable to abuse. And when discipline becomes vulnerable to abuse, trust begins to erode. It is for that reason that Action SA supports the strengthening of judicial independence within the South African National Defence Force and proudly supports the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Plaatjes.
Good afternoon, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Members. I rise in support of this military amendment bill. This amendment is a strategic step to enhance a long-term effectiveness and professionalism of the South African National Defence Force. 30 years into our constitutional democracy, we have reached a stage of maturity where we can align the institution with the transformation vision of our constitution. This foundational document not only enshrines the supremacy of the rule of law, but also demands that every arm of the state, including the military, embodies the values and human dignity, equality, and justice. This bill gives practical expression to the constitutional vision in the unique context of the military service. Our constitution is a living instrument that continues to guide the evaluation of our state institutions. By applying its principle to the military justice system, we are not only complying with the court judgments, but also deepening democratic character of the SADF. This reform reaffirms that the Defence Force belongs to the people and must serve them within the framework of the rights and accountability. Our country faces a dynamic security environment. Our borders continue to require robust protection against transitional threats. Our maritime domain needs strong safeguarding to protect our marine resources across the continent, particularly in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Our troops are making valuable contributions to peace and stability under difficult conditions. At home, the South African National Defence Force stand ready to support communities during disasters, emergencies. In all these theaters, our soldiers perform their duties with dedication and courage. This bill strengthens the foundation they operate on by enhancing judicial independence in the military justice system. We build greater internal confidence and trust. When our men and women in uniform know that disciplinary processes are fair and constitutionally sound, they serve with even higher moral and commitment. When commanders can rely on robust and lawful processes, they can maintain discipline more effectively. This amendment further advances the constitutional project of building an inclusive South Africa. It creates conditions where talent from all corners of the society can thrive, knowing that fairness and justice are guaranteed regardless of rank, background, or gender. A modern, credible military justice system also helps us attract and retain the best young talent in South Africa as is offered by youth. We are equally determined to build a defense force where every member is treated with dignity and respect. By strengthening accountability, we create an environment that better prevents misconduct and supports the advancement of women in the military. This contributes directly to forces of rejuvenation and help us to develop the younger soldiers, more skilled and representatives stand up ready for the challenges of the future. Honorable members, this reform is very relatable to ordinary South Africans. Think of a mother in Limpopo whose son is serving on the borders. She wants to know that the system that governing him is just a fair system. Think of a young woman in the Eastern Cape considering the military career. She needs confidence that the institution will uphold her rights while demanding the highest standard of discipline. The bill speaks directly to those families and to the future of our defense force. In today's complex security landscape, it marks by hybrid threats, regional instability, increased demands of humanitarian assistance. The quality of our institutions matters more than ever. Our Constitution provides this guiding compass for navigating these challenges by ensuring military justice reflects in the constitutional principle. We improve operational effectiveness, strengthen retention, and enhance South African credibility in SADC and the AU, and internally our own peacekeeping missions. 30 years after its adoption of our Constitution continues to prove its relevance by enabling us to modernize critical state institutions. This bill demonstrates that institutional supremacy and military professionalism are mutually reinforcing. It equips the South African National Defense Force to protect our sovereignty, secure our people, and contribute meaningfully to regional stability with even greater legitimacy and public trust. This is another important step in building a professional, accountable, and constitutional defense force our nation deserves. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP believes that a highly disciplined and professional defense force, where rank is respected and orders are obeyed, is crucial for military operations, whether deployed on foreign peacekeeping missions, humanitarian missions, or to assist police in fighting criminal syndicates in our townships. Yet sadly, there is an increasing ill discipline, as highlighted recently by the Chief of the SANDF. Military courts, then, are crucial to maintain and enforce military discipline. This bill, which the ACDP supports, arises from the O'Brien Constitutional Court judgment, which re-emphasized the importance of judicial independence. We too, as the ACDP, commend Lieutenant Colonel O'Brien for his principled stance, despite immense pressure from his superiors. Judges, as we know in terms of our Constitution, are required to apply the law impartially, without fear, favor, or prejudice, and without interference from the executive or parliament. Crucially, the court found that this important principle does not stop at the gates of military bases. Like every citizen, every soldier is entitled to and deserves a military justice system that is fair, credible, and constitutionally compliant. The independence of military judges, as in the case of civilian judges, is thus crucial for justice to be properly dispensed. In this regard, the Constitutional Court quoted with approval the LeBlanc case, where it was stated, "It is important for the accused person that the military judge not be or appear to be beholden to the members of the chain of command. That is, that his or her security of tenure is not subject to reappointment, and that his or her institutional independence provides the accused with the assurance of a fair and equitable trial." In this regard, the ACDP agrees with the Constitutional Court. This bill implements the findings of the Con Court. Whilst we thus support this very important bill, and we trust that military courts will be properly capacitated to ensure that the many offences that are being tried in such courts, and including the high levels of gender-based violence, are properly investigated and prosecuted. This particularly where complaints in the military sector are often pressurized by senior officers not to pursue their cases, particularly where, and those complainants are often fearful that their chances of promotion and prospects will be jeopardized by their pursuing these complaints. These complainants must be fully protected to ensure that justice, including in the military justice concept, is ensured. The ACDP supports this bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Garner. Then the Honourable Garner seems not to be in the House. I now call upon the Honourable Ismail Musa.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Honorable esteemed members, beloved family of South Africans, in the name of Almighty, the most gracious and the most merciful, I greet our beloved nation in the warmest greetings of prayer, peace, and love. Al-Jamaah supports the strengthening of discipline, accountability, and professionalism. A disciplined military is essential for maintaining operational readiness, protecting our constitutional democracy, and ensuring the members of the Defence Force uphold the highest standards of conduct. This bill seeks to improve the military justice system by addressing procedural shortcomings and ensuring greater efficiency, fairness, and legal certainty. As Parliament, we have a responsibility to ensure the military discipline is balanced with the constitutional rights of military personnel. Discipline must never be arbitrary. It must be lawful, transparent, and consistent with the values of our Constitution. The bill therefore represents an important step in modernizing military justice while maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of the Defence Force. At the same time, we must acknowledge the challenges facing our soldiers, including resource constraints, aging infrastructure, and the welfare needs of members and their families. Discipline flourishes best where morale, support, and leadership are strong. We therefore call on the Department to continue investing in the well-being, training, and development of our military personnel. South Africa's men and women in uniform serve under difficult circumstances, both at home and in peacekeeping missions across the African continent. They deserve a military justice system that is fair, credible, and capable of maintaining good order and discipline. Al-Jamaah therefore supports this amendment bill. A disciplined Defence Force safeguards our democracy, protects our people, and strengthens our nation. Moving forward, Al-Jamaa believes in a strong, disciplined defense and a strong African nation. I thank you. Malibo.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Mashlatsi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Khoto, Africa. This bill is necessary to respond to the Constitutional Court judgment of O'Brien matter, which found the shortcomings in the appointment and the removal of military judges. We welcome the establishment of independent military judicial advisory committee and the measures introduced to strengthen the independence, transparency, and credibility of military courts. A disciplined defense force requires an independent military justice system. Without justice, discipline becomes arbitrary. Without discipline, national security becomes vulnerable. However, Chairperson, while we support this bill, we must also identify the gaps that remain. The bill focuses on military judges, but it does not sufficiently address the broader conditions that affect discipline within the South African National Defence Force. Military discipline cannot be separated from the reality faced by our own soldiers on the ground. Today, the SANDF faces declining budget, aging equipment, deteriorating infrastructure, inadequate accommodation, limited resources, and reduced operational readiness. We cannot expect world-class discipline from soldiers while ignoring the conditions under which they serve. The bill also failed to address the growing importance of mental health support within the military environment. Soldiers deployed in peacekeeping operations, border safeguarding missions, and high-risk environments face significant psychological pressures. A modern military justice system must recognize these realities. Furthermore, there is an insufficient emphasis on transformation and skill development within military judicial structure. We must ensure that young African legal practitioners, women, and previously disadvantaged South Africans are afforded meaningful opportunities to participate in military justice institutions. Chairperson, legislations alone cannot secure our nation. Military courts alone cannot protect our borders. Discipline must be supported by proper training, modern equipment, adequate funding, and investment in welfare of our soldiers. The recent operational challenges experienced by our defense force demonstrate that judicial reform must be accompanied by serious commitment to rebuild South Africa's defense capabilities.
Honourable Member, your time is now expired.
Kanimambo.
The next speaker is the Honourable Shelembe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I stand here today to debate the Military Discipline Supplementary Amendment Bill, which aims to strengthen the independence and credibility of the military justice system. The bill seeks to amend the Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Act to ensure compliance with the Constitutional Court's judgment in the O'Brien versus Minister of Defense and Military Veterans matter. It provides for the independent establishment of the Military Judicial Advisory Committee and introduces a more independent process for the assignment and removal of the military judges and senior military judges. Chairperson, the central objective is to enhance the independence of the military judicial services while ensuring compliance with the Constitution. The alternative executive control military courts are far more costly in the long run. The Constitutional Court gave a clear instruction, yet the minister's original bill needed major surgery by the DA just to approach the constitutional master. The central question remains as to why the executive sought so much control over the military judges in a constitutional democracy like South Africa. Chairperson, the judicial independence is a cornerstone of constitutional democracy, including within military environment. The Constitutional Court made it clear that military judges must be protected from undue influence in the matters relating to their employment, tenure, and removal. While the military operates within a unique command and control structure, military courts still perform judicial functions and must therefore enjoy sufficient independence and impartiality. Chairperson, disciplinary military force requires a professional and impartial discipline system. Discipline is fundamental to any military organization. Without discipline, operational effectiveness, command authority, and military professionalism is undermined. At the same time, military discipline must be administered through a system that is credible and impartial and trusted by those who serve within them. The bill contributes to strengthening that balance by enhancing independence and credibility of the military judicial processes. It supports constitutional requirement contained in Section 200, Clause 1 of the Constitution, which states that, I quote, "The defense force must be structured and managed as a disciplined military force," close quote. And this is what the Democratic Alliance set out to achieve. Chairperson, this Defense Amendment Bill removes military judges from the Board of Inquiry, and that is common sense. You cannot investigate a judge in the same command chain that the judge oversees. Interestingly, even the minister has eventually agreed. Our committee played an important role in refining the bill in ensuring compliance with the Constitutional Court mandate. Section 59 of the Constitution states the National Assembly must facilitate public involvement in the legislative and other processes in the Assembly and its committees. The bill was advertised on the 9th December 2025 on the Parliament website and was further advertised on all parliamentary social media platforms on the 12th January 2026 and in the national newspaper on the 23rd January 2026, inviting interested individuals, organizations, academic, and relevant stakeholders to submit written comments. All public submissions were considered and deliberated on the content of the bill, clause by clause, and requested various technical amendments. Certain clauses were returned for redrafting and further deliberations to ensure greater clarity and legal certainty before the committee adopted the bill. The process reflects the Parliament's commitment to ensuring that the legislation fully addresses the concerns raised by the Constitutional Court. Chairperson, it is the view of the Democratic Alliance that the long-term goal must be stronger, more capable, and more professional SNDF. As Parliament, we should view this bill as one component of wider efforts to strengthen military discipline and improve the effectiveness of the military discipline. The ultimate objective is not merely legal compliance, but the maintenance of a professional defense force that operates in accordance with the Constitution, commands the public confidence, and is capable of fulfilling the mandate effectively. By strengthening the integrity of the military justice, we strengthen the foundation of the military discipline itself. In conclusion, the Democratic Alliance supports a strong and disciplined defense force, and this requires impartial military judges. This is why we fought for this amendment and not against the SNDF, but for its integrity. The Democratic Alliance supports the bill. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Munyai.
Honorable House Chairperson, honorable members, and our minister and the two deputy ministers respectively, as we commemorate the 30 years of constitutional democracy, during the course of this month, on the 15th of June, we'll commemorate the 41st anniversary of the Botswana cross-border raid, where Comrade Tamim Nyele, who designed the current logo of the ANC, was brutally murdered by the apartheid regime. Tammy was a symbol of the raid and one of the finest MK ex-combatant, whose exhumation and reburial one was personally at the center and involved. We raise this point, Chairperson, precisely because we're trying to demonstrate that the freedom we talk about was not free. At the heart of the constitutional democracy lies a profound guarantee, an enduring commitment of the aspiration of the people of South Africa as a whole. Section 200 of the Constitution entrusts that South African National Defence Force will be responsibility of defending and protecting the Republic and its people. The men and women of South African Army, Air Force, Navy, and the military health services are not merely the custodian of the borders, but they are guardians of our constitutional democracy, protectors of our national sovereignty, defenders of our freedom, won through generation of struggle and sacrifice. Their service ensures that democratic gains of the past 3 decades are preserved for future generations. It is therefore, Honorable House Chair, that it is incumbent upon the House to ensure that each and every military services is adequately funded, properly maintained, and equipped with capabilities required to meet the complex and evolving challenges of the 21st century. In doing so, Honorable House Chair, we need to strengthen not only our defense force, but also our sovereignty, resilient, and a democratic future of the Republic. We are confident that through the strategic vision to rebuild and modernize our military, the so-called journey to greatness, eventually funding will be found to support our military. The men and women in South African Army, Air Force and Navy and military health services continue to work hard to ensure that the democratic gains of the past decades, 3 decades, are preserved for the future generation. Honorable members, we speak of the coherent, well-coordinated and unified, indispensable services of the South African Army, South African Air Force, South African Navy, and the South African Military Health Services. Together, they are the unbreakable solid backbone of our national defense capability, playing a significant role in safeguarding South Africa's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the constitutional order. As the ANC, we firmly believe that every mission that are undertaken by the SANDF is clearly defined, strategically directed, and effectively executed. We remain unwavering in our commitment to ensure that SANDF is operational combat ready at all material times, both within our borders and across the theaters of their deployment in accordance with the Constitution and international law. Our soldiers possess the capability, the discipline, and the courage and resilience that inspire confidence to our nation's ability to protect our sovereignty upon peace and stability. They execute their mandate with highest degree of military precision, safeguarding our sovereignty and protecting our people. Whether confronted with external aggression, SANDF stayed prepared to neutralize and deter and respond decisively to any threat that endangers the Republic of South Africa. While we celebrate the Constitution, Section 26 and Section 27 of the Constitution protect the rights and affirm the access of our people to housing and health care. For the past 30 years of the Constitution, our people has been receiving millions of houses. Going forward under the ANC ministry leadership, our people continue to receive the quality of houses. For the past 3 decades, our people has been receiving health care, our government building more clinics and hospitals. Going forward, they will be able to receive the quality of health care through the National Health Insurance, so that every South African, regardless of their socio-economic status, they must be able to access the health quality of care. South African military health services continue to play a meaningful role to ensure that the health care and the well-being and operational readiness of our servicemen and women, both at home and the theaters of deployment, are always healthy and ready to execute their mission. So therefore, Honorable Chair, what is critical is that it's undeniable that our people were not merely denied an opportunity to have these benefits that the human potential, if they receive, continue to live in quality and service. We must say, Honorable Chairperson, or make a clear call before the ministry that our military veterans must be able to continue to get their benefits. I know this further debate around this vote will be engaged upon. So the credible database have to be concluded with speed. We must say that, Honorable House Chairperson, the Freedom Charter is the one that preceded all this constitution to make sure that our country can remain protected. One clear call we're making as the Portfolio Committee and the ANC is that our people, our military must make sure, and our police or the services, that the continuation of the stealing of weapons, those criminals must be found, because we can't agree that those weapons, they continue to endanger our people. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Honorable Olamisa.
Hey, Baba. Aye, Patega, man. Chairperson and honorable members, I have listened carefully to the views expressed. There appears to be broad recognition that the military justice system must remain both effective and constitutionally compliant. Some members have rightly raised concerns regarding the broader challenges facing the Defence Force, including resource constraints, force preparedness, declining infrastructure, and personnel matters. These are important issues that the ministry and department continue to engage with. On the question of US Marine in Cape Town, I would suggest that Ministers of State, DECO, and Home Affairs should have coffee with the Premier of this province as well as the Mayor of Cape Town, just to compare notes. At this stage, I got funity in Amkwat. Those who were not happy with the integration in 1993, I would also suggest that they should petition Parliament, because Department of Defense will only increase the number of those who are not catered for, only if this Parliament says so. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the debate. Are there any objections to the bill being read a second time? If no objections agreed to, the Secretary will read the bill a second time.
Military Discipline Supplementary Measures Amendment Bill, Bill 31, 2025.
The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. The Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Social Development on petition from Western Cape senior citizens on a petition for Parliament to consider their grievances towards SASSA to assist them with payment of their SASSA grants and related matters.
Where is the Honourable Member? Honourable Members, may I request you to follow the proceedings and move to the waiting chairs on the side, so that when I call you, you don't have to walk from far to get to the front. It's delaying proceedings. I now recognize the chairperson of the committee who will introduce the report.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. The report I am introducing today gives effect to the principle that this Parliament is truly the People's Parliament. The initiative taken by the representatives of older persons in the Western Cape to bring their grievances before Parliament is both commendable on the part of their representatives and a matter of serious concern for the Department of Social Development and its agency, the South African Social Security Agency. Honourable Chairperson, the main grievances captured in the petition as reflected in the report dated 3 December 2025 are as follows: poor treatment of older persons, disrespectful behavior and mistreatment at SASSA offices, security personnel acting with hostility rather than providing support, the absence of effective mechanisms to report or address staff misconduct, delays in the payment of social grants, and unexplained withholding of grants, resulting in socio-economic hardships, including hunger, debt, and emotional distress. Calls for an increase in the older persons grant to 5,000 Rand in light of the rising cost of living in South Africa. These are serious concerns affecting some of the most vulnerable members of our society. While SASSA assured the petitioners that and other older persons that concerns relating to client experience would be addressed without delay, it also emphasized that grant amounts are determined in accordance with prevailing legislative and policy frameworks in consultation with the National Treasury. Honourable Chairperson, grant payment statistics contained in SASSA's annual performance plans indicate that payment rates have consistently exceeded 90%. However, in a country facing high levels of poverty, unemployment, and rising food prices, even a small percentage of beneficiaries who do not receive their grants on time is a percentage too many. For many older persons, a social grant is not only a means of supporting themselves, it is often used to support unemployed adult children and grandchildren within multi-generational households. The consequences of delayed or withheld payments, therefore, extend far beyond the individual beneficiary. SASSA should continue striving to fulfill its commitment of paying the right social grant to the right person at the right time and place, njalo. Honorable Chairperson, the njalo part of the promise by SASSA is at the center of the petition we are deliberating on today. Njalo means all the time, and the petition speaks of delays, withholding, etc. The njalo I and many South Africans know seems to have lost its meaning to SASSA. To the extent that this is true, progress is needed manje. The experience reflected in this petition stand in stark contrast to that commitment. Honorable Chairperson, we have recently received updates regarding implementation of National Treasury endorsed verification processes. While these measures are welcome insofar as they seek to eliminate fraudulent grant payments and hold accountable those implicated in the abuse of public funds, they have also highlighted an emerging concern. The committee is concerned that verification processes may result in legitimate and deserving beneficiaries being deprived of their grants for extended periods. This is precisely the concern raised by the petitioners, who referred to the unexplained withholding of grants and the resulting socio-economic hardship, hunger, debt, and emotional distress experienced by affected families. We therefore commend the older persons of Western Cape for bringing this matter to the attention of Parliament. We further call upon the Department and SASSA to ensure that—
Honourable Member, your time has now expired. Thank you.
I therefore implore this House to adopt this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Members, I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The opportunity to do so, the usual times for declaration of votes will apply. MK?
Sihlalo namalunga lendlu ahloniphekileyo, uma kufikwa odabeni lwabantu abadala, umkhonto wesizwe uzwa ubuhlungu obukhulu kakhulu, sifikelwa usizi nenyembezi. Into ebanga lokho sihlalo isimo abantu abadala baphila ngaphansi kwaso. Abantu abadala baphila ngaphansi kwesimo esinzima kakhulu, njengoba silokhu sikhalela ukuthi isibonelelo sabantu abadala sikhushulwe sifike okungenani ey'nkulungwane eziyisihlanu. Kungenxa ukuthi lesi sibonelelo asibhekani nje nabantu abadala kuphela, kodwa sibhekana nabantu abasha abaningi abaneminyaka esiyedlulile kuma-35 abangaqasheki, abangasebenzi. Sihlalo abantu abadala base-South Africa abayifikelanga kule nhlupheko lena, kodwa bafikiswa umbuso wabamhlophe wangaphambili owabacindezela kakhulu, wabashiya nezibazo, wabaphuca konke okwakungokwabo, wabashiya behlwempu bengenalutho. Sihlalo abantu abadala base-South Africa, njengoba ngikhuluma nawe nje, uhulumeni wavala izikhungo zokuholela okubenza abahamba amabanga amade kakhulu uma beyocosha labo peni ababacoshayo. Uhulumeni evala izikhungo wathi ubalekela igebengu. Ngiyesaba kakhulu sihlalo ukuthi abantu abadala baphephile yini, thina zakhamuzi siphephile ne-South Africa, ma siphethwe uhulumeni obalekayo abalekela igebengu, kungeyizona igebengu ezibalekela uhulumeni. Safika kanjani entweni la kuhulumeni ohamba ecashe emahlathini ecashela igebengu kungezona igebengu ezicashela uhulumeni. Enye inkinga sihlalo ukuthi uma abantu abadala kufika isikhathi sokuthi babacoshe labo peni basuke sebephelile ngenxa lokho baphila komashonisa ama-ID abo namakhadi abokhola ahlala komashonisa. Okunye ukuthi lengcindezi yokuthi abantu abadala basuke ey'ndaweni zasemakhaya ey'kude bayohola emadolobheni yenza ukuthi bakhokhe imali eningi noma sebebatholile labo penyana baphinde futhi bakhokhele lokho abakuthengile ngoba ey'motweni zasemakhaya uyalikhokhela isaka lempuphu uyalikhokhela isaka lamazambane. Sihlalo sisencindezini enkulu kakhulu. Uma namhlanje sibuka laba abantu abadala base-Western Cape sebeze bafika eParliament bezoyikhalela kwikomiti la social development, siyabona ukuthi kushukuthi ihulumeni kaGNU akanazi indlebe zokubezwa abantu ukuthi bathini. Asazi ukuthi kuzofika nini la uhulumeni eba nendlebe yokubalalela abantu ukuthi bathini. Asibalaleleni abantu sizizwe ikhalo zabo. Sihlalo siyacela abantu baseningizimu Afrika ngomhla zizine kuLwezi abayivoteli MK ukuze siyenze imizamo yokuzwelana nabantu abadala incindezi nenhlupheko ilamabanga ahambayo ngoba nakhona lapho okwathiwa bayohola khona bayabanjwa izigebengu amamola yabanjwa imshini iyabhontshwa ayikazi igebengu zikiyeke lokho ngenxa yokuvalwa kwemali yabantu abadala ezikhungweni. Sihlalo ngiyacela, sihlalo ngiyacela asibazwele abantu abadala base South Africa. Asibazwele abantu okuyibona abanezibazi zobandlululo banamasikazi banezilonda bayakhumbula bacindezelwa bahlushwa umbuso wabamhlophe. Ngiyabonga.
The EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would like to greet my CIC, our officials, ground forces, and the EFF members at large and the community. Honorable Chairperson, I rise to support the report of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development on the petition submitted by senior citizens from the Western Cape regarding social grant payments and related service delivery challenges. A society is judged by how it treats its elderly. When pensioners are forced to queue for hours, travel great distances, and fight bureaucracy for what is rightfully theirs, it is not only a service delivery failure, it's a failure of our collective humanity. South Africa population of older persons continues to grow. Many older persons rely heavily on the older persons grant, not only for their own survival, but also to support unemployed children, grandchildren, and extended family members. In many households, the grant remains the only stable source of income. These are not abstract complaints. They concern the payment of social grants, the suspension of review of grants, poor communication, long queues, inaccessible services, and the dignity of many older persons continue to experience when engaging with social security system. The old age grant is not charity. It is a constitutional obligation flowing from the right to social security and the duty of the state to protect the dignity and well-being of our all people, particularly the older and vulnerable. The community received concerns from older persons regarding the treatment they receive at SASSA offices and pay points, delays in grant payments, difficulties associated with grant reviews and appeals, and the general quality of service delivery experienced by beneficiaries. Disrespectful treatment, long waiting periods, poor communications, unexplained grant suspensions, and delay in resolutions of appeals. These challenges are not caused by the state and left unattended are challenges that undermine the dignity of older persons and impose unnecessary suffering on people who depend on social assistance to survive, exposing the persistent failure of government to protect those who have contributed most to building this country. Our older citizens are subjected to long queues, slow administration, process, and negative staff attitudes continue to affect beneficiaries' ability to access service efficiently. These concerns require urgent attention by both the Department of Social Development and South African Social Security Agency. Our most vulnerable citizens are subjected to conditions that are unacceptable in a constitutional democracy that reflects a state that continues to fail the most vulnerable citizens. House Chair, the committee recognized that grant increases have not always kept
Remember,
pace.
your time has now expired. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We accept this report. We support the report, Chairperson.
Thank you. The IFP.
Honorable Chairperson, the Inkatha Freedom Party recognizes the concerns raised by senior citizens regarding their experiences with SASSA and the challenges they face in assessing social assistance. We remain concerned about the reports of long queues, delays in grant-related processes, poor communication, and instances in which beneficiaries are not treated with the dignity and the respect they deserve. Elderly people who depend on social grants should not be subjected to unnecessary hardship when assessing these essential services. The rising cost of living continues to place pressure on pensioners, many of whom support unemployed family members with multi-general household. For many families, an older person's grant remain the only reliable source of income and support. The IFP supports efforts to strengthen accountability, improve communications with beneficiaries, and ensure that appeals and complaints are resolved efficiently and fairly. The true measures of an effective social assistance system is not only whether grants are paid, but whether beneficiaries receive the support they are entitled to in a dignified and efficient manner. The IFP therefore supports the report and its objective of improving service delivery and safeguarding the dignity of South Africa's senior citizens. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The PA.
Honourable House Chair, the Patriotic Alliance supports the report of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development regarding the petition submitted by senior citizens from the Western Cape on the challenges they experience in accessing social assistance services. This petition highlights the harsh reality faced by many elderly South Africans. Far too many pensioners continue to experience long queues, delayed grant payments, poor communication, and disrespectful treatment when seeking assistance from SASSA. These failures undermine the dignity of older persons who depend on social grants to survive. The Patriotic Alliance is deeply concerned that the older person's grant is not keeping pace with the inflation and the rising cost of living. Pensioners are increasingly forced to choose between food, healthcare, transport, and other basic necessities. Those who have spent their lives contributing to our country deserve better support in their retirement years. We therefore support the recommendation that the Minister of Social Development engage with the Minister of Finance to review the value of the older person's grant and ensure that it provides meaningful relief to beneficiaries. We also support ongoing efforts towards strengthening income security for vulnerable households. Furthermore, we support calls for improved customer service, accurate and updated information on all SASSA platforms, and appropriate training for frontline staff to ensure that beneficiaries are treated with dignity, respect, and professionalism at all times. Chairperson, our senior citizens should not have to fight for services that are rightfully theirs. The Patriotic Alliance stands firmly with pensioners and supports all measures aimed at improving service delivery, strengthening of social protection, and restoring dignity to the persons across South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you. The FF Plus. Action SA, ACDP, Action SA.
Honorable Speaker, a measly 2,400 is the amount at which the old age grant is currently set. This petition, submitted by the senior citizens amongst the most vulnerable members of society, highlights not only the financial pressures facing pensioners, but also a serious failure on the part of Parliament. This report was tabled already in December 2025, yet this House is only considering it some 7 months later. We must do better to ensure that the voices of our people are heard and that petitions of this nature are dealt with as expeditiously as possible. Citizens who engage with Parliament deserve timely responses, particularly when their concerns relate to the ability to afford basic necessities and their dignity. Action SA believes that the old age grant should be automatically linked to inflation-based increases because alles gaan op behalwe die grant. This would be an important first step towards ensuring that the vital social protection it provides is not steadily eroded by the rising costs of living. It is just impossible for citizens of the Western Cape to get by, considering that they have to support their entire families, children's children, and so forth. At the same time, we must not ignore the broader reality. The millions of South Africans who depend on social grants are in many respects the consequences of an economy that has failed to create sufficient opportunities for work. Today, some 12 million South Africans are unemployed. If we are serious about restoring dignity and security to our people, we must build an economy that creates jobs. Social grants provide an essential safety net, but they can never substitute for a job-creating economy. They can never substitute for dignity. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ACDP, UDM, RISE, BOSA, ATM, Al-Jama.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable esteemed members, and beloved South Africans. I greet you in the wonderful greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Today, we consider a matter that directly affects some of the most vulnerable members of our society, our senior citizens, the elderly. The petition before us highlights the frustrations and hardships experienced by elderly beneficiaries regarding the payment of their grants through SASSA. For many senior citizens, these grants are not merely a source of income. They are a lifeline that provides food, medication, transport, and basic dignity and necessity. When pensioners are forced to endure long queues, administrative delays, payment uncertainties, or difficulties accessing their grants, it is not merely an inconvenience. It is a violation of their dignity and a failure of the social protection system that is intended to support them. Our Constitution places an obligation on the state to progressively realize socio-economic rights and to protect those who are unable to provide for themselves. We therefore commend the senior citizens of the Western Cape for bringing their concerns before Parliament and exercising their democratic right to petition this institution. The recommendations of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development provide an important opportunity to strengthen accountability, improve service delivery, and ensure that SASSA responds effectively to the legitimate concerns raised by beneficiaries. As Parliament, we must continue exercising...
Honourable Member, your time has expired. The
Thank
NCC,
you. Malibongwe.
PAC, UAT,
Thank you, Chairperson. Khotom, Africa. The United African Transformation support this report and commend the senior citizens of Ravensmith, Elsie River, Kailicha, Hanover Park, Langa, and other communities who exercise their constitutional right to petition Parliament. The grievances raised in this petition are deeply concerning. No elderly person should be subjected to disrespect, humiliation, endless queues, delayed payments, or unexpected grant suspension. Social grants are not a favor from government. They are a constitutional instrument to restore dignity and protecting vulnerable citizens from poverty and hunger. The UAT welcomed the committee's call for improved service delivery, compassion from frontline staff, and establishment of an independent complaint mechanism. We further support greater transparency in grant review and appeals, including accessible SMS notification and tracking system. However, Chairperson, we remain concerned that the social grant continue to lag behind the rising cost of living. Elderly citizens are confronted daily by the increased food prices, electricity costs, transport expenses, and healthcare needs. A grant that cannot provide basic food security cannot fully protect human dignity. The struggle against poverty, inequality, and hunger remain the unfinished business of the liberation. Our senior citizens should not spend their retirement years choosing between food, medication, and electricity. The United African Transformation therefore support these reports and call upon the government, SASSA, municipalities, and all stakeholders to place the dignity,
Honourable
welfare,
Member,
and
your time
protection
is
of
now
older persons
expired.
at the center of the public policy. Mambo.
The DA.
Thank you, House Chair. Hopefully, the plight of SASSA grant beneficiaries is not unfamiliar to members of this House. Too often, it feels as though the Department of Social Development and SASSA, the very institutions responsible for supporting more than 26 million South Africans, are disconnected from the daily realities of the people they are mandated to serve. Of these beneficiaries, approximately 4.2 million are older persons who are dependent on the old age grant to survive. On the 26th of August 2025, old age grant beneficiaries marched to Parliament to make their frustrations heard and present a petition detailing their grievances. My colleague, Alexander Abrams, received the petition and engaged directly with the protesters. What they described was not an isolated experience. Their stories reflect the struggles faced by millions of grant beneficiaries across South Africa every day. These older persons spoke of disrespect, hostility, and humiliation when seeking assistance from SASSA. They described spending hours, sometimes entire nights, standing in queues, often in unsafe areas and harsh weather conditions. Many arrived before dawn, only to be turned away without assistance. Far too often, what should be the exception has become the norm. Beneficiaries are told their systems are offline, that the relevant official is unavailable, that there's a technical failure, a power outage, or simply that they cannot be helped that day. They are then expected to spend what little money they have on another trip and try again. This is particularly concerning in the context of biometric verification requirements. Beneficiaries who have been flagged for verification risk losing access to their grant if they're unable to comply within the required time frame. Imagine, honorable members, the fear and the anxiety of knowing that your only source of income may be suspended, not because you refuse to comply, but because the very institution responsible for assisting you failed to do so. The petition also highlighted delayed payments, unexplained grant suspensions, and lengthy reinstatement processes that leave vulnerable people in limbo for months. The committee heard that beneficiaries often receive little to no information about why their grants have been suspended or how long they can expect to wait for a resolution. Chairperson, many older person grants support entire households, as many honourable members have said today, not just the pensioner who receives them. In a country where food security remains a daily reality and where children continue to suffer from malnutrition, every delayed or suspended grant has consequences far beyond a single beneficiary. SASSA already lapsed 67,868 grants and suspended 48,949 grants. If every one of those cases involved fraud or abuse of the system, then that would be welcomed. The DA supports robust verification processes and strong measures to ensure that social assistance reaches the correct beneficiaries. But how many of those lapses and suspensions involve vulnerable people that genuinely attempt to comply only to be failed by the system? How many spend money they could not afford on transport to and from SASSA offices? How many stand in queues for hours overnight only to be turned away because the systems were down and no assistance was available? The committee also identified ongoing communications within SASSA. Beneficiaries don't understand what is required of them when they are flagged for verification, creating confusion and uncertainty. The committee recommended that SASSA improve its website and information platforms with accurate information, but implementation of these recommendations have not been fully implemented. Concerns persist regarding treatment of beneficiaries at service points despite training staff. This is why the committee's recommendation for monthly reports on queue management, communication, and service delivery is critical. Accountability and dignity for beneficiaries must remain a priority. Accountability cannot be optional. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson, our ministers and deputy ministers. I'm here to consider the report of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development on Petition from Western Cape Senior Citizen regarding SASSA grants and related matters. You are a generation that endured the hardship of apartheid, witnessed the transition to democracy, and continues to serve as a moral compass of our nation. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to support the report of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development arising from the petition submitted by senior citizens across the Western Cape. This report reflects the concerns of older persons regarding the adequacy of social grants, service delivery, challenges at SASSA offices, and then the appeals on the system, and also the broader socio-economic pressures facing the pensioners. The ANC understands the gravity of concerns raised regarding the older persons grant. We know that grants often support entire households, including unemployed adult children and grandchildren, while also covering basic necessities such as food, electricity, transport, and education costs. In many homes, pensioners remain the last line defense against poverty and hunger. The community correctly noted that rising food parcels and the cost of living continue to place immense pressure on older persons. However, social grants allocation are determined through broader government fiscal process involving in the national treasury and not solely within the mandate of Department of Social Department. While we regret calls for a substantial grant increase and the morality justified, currently, fiscal constraints limit the immediate realization of such demands. Nevertheless, the ANC remains committed to strengthening social protection, reducing poverty, and improving the living conditions of older persons. Honorable members, senior citizens also raised concerns about the long queues, slow service delivery, inadequate waiting facilities, and poor treatment of SASSA offices. These challenges undermines the constitutional right to dignity and social security. The ANC welcomes SASSA ongoing program which seeks to bring services closer to beneficiaries and reduce the burden of the traveling to service points. However, digital beneficiaries from fraud and other forms of exploitation. This entails strengthening strengthening partnership with the telecommunication sector to enhance connectivity and ensure digital services are accessible to all communities. We also condemn the ill treatment of senior citizens of call for the consistent enforcement of Matrupili principles across all SASSA offices. The ANC welcomed the committee's recommendation that the Department of Social Development expedite work towards implementing a basic income grant. This intervention is important in addressing poverty and income insecurity. The Constitution guarantees access to social security for those unable to support themselves. The ANC believes that progress towards the sustainable basic income grant will ease the burden on senior citizens who support entire households and contribute to greater financial stability. Finally, concern regarding appeals reviews a poor communication from SASSA must be addressed urgently. Beneficiaries should not be left uncertain about the status of the appeals or the reasons for grant suspension. We will continue to exercise robust oversight to ensure that the system are strengthened and that the target of resolving is 90% appeals within 90 days is achieved. Improving strategy in responsiveness and accountability is essential in this structure. Then at the end, I want to say, the ANC supports the adoption of this report.
Thank you,
and
Honourable
reaffirm
Member.
its
Your time has
commitment
now
of
expired.
ensuring the older person to receive dignity, respect,
Thank you.
and support.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Acting Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. I move that the report be adopted.
Honourable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? MK Party?
Thank you, Chairperson. Please note the objection of the MK Party.
Thank you. Any further objections? With that objection noted, the report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the fourth order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education and Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure on a petition from the school governing body of Lerunse Lesedi High School, Northwest Province, calling on the Assembly to investigate the dilapidated infrastructure at their school. Mr. N.P. Paramela.
Thank you. To introduce the report, the Honourable Piri.
House Chairperson, Honourable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honourable Members, allow me, on behalf of these two portfolio committee, to introduce this report. This report is coming from, it's a petition from a school governing body of the Lerunse Lesedi High School from Northwest Province. This SGP is calling for the National Assembly to investigate the dilapidated infrastructure at the school, and was referred to the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education and the Public Works by the Speaker of the National Assembly for consideration and report dated 22 April 2025. It is important, House Chair, to critically treat the matter of Lerunse Lesedi High School with great sensitivity, as it is the only secondary school at Tswaing Municipality, Northwest Province. And the majority of parents in that rural areas are unemployed and are relying on social grants. And the SGP is playing a critical role on assisting those families, especially the child-headed families, as a result of a lack of parental care. The school has 75 students enrolled, and all of them were being taught on outdated round-down classrooms with roof leaks, 25 teachers sharing 2 restrooms. And when it rains, school grounds become muddy and needed to be paved. There is no lab at the school. There is no school hall. There is no food kitchen, as well as the toilets do not adhere to health standards. Therefore, this issue, which was brought by stakeholders, suggested that there are interventions made by the department in the West of Northwest, and that those interventions have started in the financial year 2025-2026, which includes infrastructure renovations. And they have committed that they will begin another urgent repairs on all those areas identified in the late 2026-2027 financial year. And what is important is that the Department of Education in Northwest must ensure that all outstanding matters pertaining to the petition be addressed and finalized within the provided timeframes, and all matters pertaining to the school must be prioritized by the department. All what you want to see as these two committees is a school with a good infrastructure, which will focus on its core mandate, which is learning and teaching. And we envisage whereby all the pit latrines will be eliminated, all the mud constructions will be dealt with, and the school will be fenced and will have power and dependable water. House Chair, I therefore introduce this report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There will be an opportunity for declarations. The MK Party.
Honourable Speaker, fellow members of Parliament, I stand here today not with polite request, but with a burning anger because of what I've seen in the report from the Northwest and Gauteng is not a failure of administration, but it's a deliberate crime against our children. Speaker, let me speak plainly. At Lerunsa Lesedi High School in the Northwest, 750 learners are crammed into old, cracked, leaking classrooms. Some have not lights, the toilets are pit latrines, and the same pit latrines that were banned years ago. Learners who want to study maths and science must travel more than 20 kilometers to find a school with a laboratory. 20 kilometers. And the Department of Education knows. They have known since 2018, and they've done almost nothing. 2 permanent classrooms, 11 mobile units, that is their answer after 7 years of petition. Speaker, this is not a neglect, this is abandonment. Then we go to Gauteng at Pulamo Dibogo Primary, road sewage floods the playgrounds. Electrical wiring was stolen in 2022, and 3 years later, classrooms are still in darkness. Children drink from contaminated taps. At Batabile Farm Primary, pit latrines are still in use. There is no electricity, no library, no science equipment. This is not a rural disadvantage. This is a calculated disinvestment in black and working class children. And then, Speaker, we visit Pretoria High School, a beautiful, well-resourced school with laboratories, Wi-Fi, and an 8.2 million surplus sitting in the bank. While children just a few kilometers away sit three to a broken desk, this school rejects black learners using hidden language tests and cultural fit criteria. That is not excellence. That is apartheid-era exclusion dressed up as policy. Speaker, where is the money? The department underspent 1.2 billion on infrastructure last year, but they spent 6.8 million on stakeholder retreats. 4.6 million was wasted on smart boards that never worked. 2.3 million meant for disabled learners vanished into tender scandal. Officials earn over 1.2 million a year, sit in air-conditioned offices while ECD practitioners earn 12 rand an hour below minimum wage. This is theft, this is corruption, and it must be treated as a crime. So I say directly to the majority party and to the department, we demand an immediate freeze on all education tenders pending a full forensic audit. We demand criminal charges for every official who has overseen these failures. From MEC down to the district director, we demand that surplus budgets of elite schools be redirected to fix life-threatening conditions in townships and in rural schools. We demand that the president invoke Section 100 of the Constitution to place Gauteng and Northwest education under national administration because the provincial departments have failed. Speaker, children of Lerunsa Lesedi are not statistics. They are not waiting for another report. They are human beings whose futures are being stolen, and this parliament refuses to act.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time has now expired. The EFF.
Chairperson, it is an indictment on the government when a school governing body resorts to writing a petition to Parliament to have their very legitimate cries for help attended to. The SGB of Lerunsa Lesedi High School in the Northwest sent deputation after deputation to every official in the Department of Education and the Department of Public Works, complaining about the dilapidated infrastructure at the school. They list some of the defects as follows: classrooms that have cracked walls and leaking roofs. 25 teachers have to share just 2 toilets together with the learners. Classrooms have no light. There are no labs, no libraries. School grounds pose a danger to learners as they are muddy when it rains. There are no halls, nor there is a kitchen. When it rains, no proper schooling takes place because the roofs leak profusely. Chair, this should not be something parents have to contend with. 35 years post-political freedom in this country. The fact that this still happens is a marker for gross neglect and incompetence by those responsible for building school infrastructure. This petition is a painful reminder that 30 years into democracy, the quality of education a child receives is still largely determined by where they are born and the color of their skin. The SGB did everything that responsible citizens are expected to do. They raised concerns with the department, they approached the office, they engaged officials, and not yet nothing meaningful ever happened. Government officials came and went, reports came and went, promises came and went, but the leaking roofs remained, the cracked walls remained, the unsafe classrooms remained, while the humiliation persisted. What is most disturbing is that the community was made to feel as though the burden of fixing the school rested heavily on their shoulders. A poor rural community where many families survive on social grants and struggle with unemployment was effectively told to do what government itself has failed to do. What this petition has revealed is that the greatest obstacle facing many learners is not a lack of intelligence, ability, or ambition. The greatest obstacle is a state that continues to fail them. We therefore welcome the intervention that have finally been made, but we refuse to celebrate government for doing what it should have done years ago. We refuse to applaud officials for responding only after Parliament was forced to intervene. We also refuse to accept a situation where communities must petition the highest institutions on the land before basic responsibilities are fulfilled. I thank you.
Thank you. The IFP.
Honorable House Chairperson, the Inkatha Freedom Party reaffirms its commitment to safeguarding the constitutional right to a safe and conducive basic education for all children, regardless of where they live. In viewing the joint report on Lesedi High School, we must declare that rural isolation can never justify structural neglect or administrative failure. Developmental progress depends on effective coordination between school governing bodies, provincial, department, and parliamentary committees. It is regrettable that this chain of accountability was broken, thereby leaving stakeholders to operate in silos while critical compliance reports were buried rather than escalated. This breakdown also mirrors a troubling gap in financial oversight, where only a fraction of the allocated maintenance budget was used for actual repairs, thus allowing a routine upkeep of the school to collapse into a full infrastructure crisis. Honorable Speaker, administrative data cannot replace the value of direct parliamentary oversight, while officials debate abstract rating learners and harsh conditions daily. It is therefore a matter of profound regret that a comprehensive dual oversight visit by the Night on Accountability requires complete oversight. The IFP accepts this report but insists that genuine accountability requires complete oversight if dignity is to be restored to our rural schools. I thank you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. The PA.
Agbare Prater, fellow members, I rise on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance to speak to the petition submitted by the school governing body of Leron Seleseri High School in the Northwest Province. The petition, referred to the Portfolio Committee of Basic Education and Public Works and Infrastructure, exposes a crisis that can no longer be ignored. The conditions at Leron Seleseri are unacceptable. Learners are studying in classrooms with structural cracks and partially collapsing walls, leaking roofs, interrupts lessons and ruin learning materials, broken windows, doors that don't lock, damaged perimeter fencing, and exposed electrical wiring place children and staff at serious risk every day. Sanitation facilities are inadequate or non-functional. There are no minor maintenance issues. They are threats to safety, dignity, and the right to learn. Worse still, these concerns have been repeatedly raised by the school's SGB and teachers' parents, yet the necessary action has not been taken. This is not an isolated case. Across our country, public school buildings are failing because years of under-maintenance, delayed repairs, poor coordination between basic education and public works and infrastructure. Infrastructure is not optional. It is the backbone of service delivery and of a capable caring state. We call on the Department of Basic Education and Public Works to present immediately a cost deadline-driven rehabilitation plan for Lerunse Leseria High School with clear milestones and public accountability. The school must be brought into full compliance with the national infrastructure and occupational health and safety standards. No child in South Africa, and I repeat, no child in South Africa should learn under leaking roofs or in a collapsing classroom. The future of Lerunse Lesedi learners cannot wait. We urge decisive action. Salute ons baie massakers.
The FF Plus Action SA.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I stand in consideration of the petition that was written by the school governing body of Leruntsili Sedi High School in the Northwest Province, calling on this National Assembly to investigate dilapidated infrastructure of the school. Honorable Speaker, this petition and the failures that preceded it at the school governing body, provincial and national level, are a clear indication that the system of infrastructure maintenance and development in our schools is fundamentally broken. While the outcomes of this petition was positive and the necessary repairs to classrooms and sanitation facilities were ultimately undertaken, we must ask, should every school be required to petition the National Assembly simply to secure the most basic maintenance needs? It cannot be so. As it stands, there is a total of 930 schools in the Northwest Province alone that need maintenance and renovation. 118 are storm damaged, 44 have severe structural damage, and 53 are asbestos structures. Now imagine if they were all to write to this August House just to get reprieve. This case speaks to a failure of prioritization within the Department of Basic Education and provincial education departments. All too often, action is only taken once a matter receives significant public attention, and even then, the response is frequently delayed. Action SA believes that in order to fix this woeful state of affairs, routine, properly planned and adequately funded infrastructure maintenance programs must be implemented. Otherwise, the consequences of these failures are felt all the way throughout our education system by our children. To fix this, we must get the basics right to ensure that our children receive world-class education. I thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you. The ACDP, the UDM, RISE, BOSA, the ATM, Al-Jamar.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Assalamu alaikum, Malibongwe. Let me wake you up from your sleep, parliamentarians. It is a constitutional right and the foundation upon which the future of our nation is built. Today, I want to take the opportunity to educate our learners. And I want to say, we need to know what does the meaning of Ujamaa means, which means righteousness. So, I want to also educate our learners and educationists that the best thing you can do in this country presently is vote for the most trustable party, Al-Jamah. Today, we consider a petition from the school governing body of Lerunse Lesedi High School in the Northwest Province, calling upon Parliament to investigate the dilapidated state of infrastructure at their school. This petition is a reminder that behind every broken classroom, leaking roof, unsafe structure, and neglected facility are learners whose dreams and opportunities are being compromised. As members of the Parliament, we have a duty to ensure that every child, regardless of where they live, has access to a safe, dignified, and conducive learning environment. Learners should be focused on their studies and aspirations, not detracted by crumbling infrastructure, overcrowded classrooms, or safety concerns. We therefore welcome the work undertaken by the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education and Public Works and Infrastructure in investigating these concerns and engaging the relevant authorities. The report highlights the urgent need for accountability, proper maintenance, effective planning, and the accelerated
Honourable
delivery
Member.
of
Your time
infrastructure
has now expired.
projects in our school. I thank you.
The NCC, the PAC, the UIT.
Thank you, Chairperson. Kgotso, Africa. Honorable Chairperson, 30 years into democracy, we are confronted with the difficult truth. Many African children are still being treated as second-class citizens in their own country. The situation at the Lirunzelisedi High School in the Northwest and Dudley September School in Gauteng reflects a deeper national failure. Learners are exposed to leaking roof, broken sanitation, unsafe classrooms, and in some cases, schools that have been closed for months. Educators have reportedly been fallen ill due to risky conditions, while learners lose valuable teaching time. What makes this even more unjust is that the same learners are later expected to compete on an equal foot with children from well-resourced model school when they meet at the universities. We are creating a system where inequality is produced at every level. Unequal school producing unequal outcomes, yet demanding equal performance in higher education and labor market. This is not equality. This is structured disadvantage. As we approach June 16, we must ask, what are we truly commemorating if learners today face conditions that undermine the very future the youth of 1976 fought for? Ubuntu teaches us that child's dignity is a responsibility of the society as a whole. When children learn in unsafe conditions,
Thank you,
when
Honourable
school
Member.
collapse, when months of education are
Thank
lost
you.
without consequences,
Your time has now
then our
expired.
democracy is failing in the most basic moral.
Honourable Mahlatsi.
Mambo. I'm not in a hurry.
The Good Party, the DA.
House Chairperson, today I want to begin with the learners of Lorenzo Lesedi High School in the Northwest Province. To those learners, to their parents, and to their teachers, you deserved better. No child should have to go to learn in a school that becomes the subject of a petition to Parliament before the provincial government takes notice. And while this report concerns one school in the Northwest Province, as my fellow member from Action SA rightly pointed out, and all of us members in this House know that the Lorenzo Lesedi High School is not alone. There are schools across South Africa facing similar challenges. Schools with leaking asbestos roofs, schools with broken windows, schools waiting years for repair, mud schools waiting to be replaced, schools where communities have complained, written letters, attended meetings, and raised concerns only to be ignored by the very provincial governments they seek to be served by. That is why this report matters, because this report tells us something important. The Northwest Department of Education knew. The Northwest Department of Public Works knew. Officials visited the school, inspections were conducted, reports were compiled, recommendations were made, yet the problems remained. So the obvious question is this: if everyone knew, why did parents have to petition Parliament before any action was taken? And the answer is simple. The ANC-run provincial departments in the Northwest Province responsible for education and public works failed those learners. That is the uncomfortable truth of this report. The failure was not a lack of information. The failure was not a lack of accountability. The failure was a lack of accountability. The failure was a lack of urgency. And the failure was a lack of delivery and care. Chairperson, South Africans are constantly told that these failures are inevitable. We are told there's not enough money. We are told that infrastructure backlogs are unavoidable. We are told that the government is trying its best. But elsewhere in South Africa, the evidence tells a very different story. In the Western Cape, under DA Education MEC David Mania, the Provincial Department of Education is expanding opportunity to access. This year alone, the Western Cape Department of Education is providing 701 additional teaching posts, building 10 new schools, adding 280 classrooms and new and existing schools, and creating space for thousands of additional learners. Through its Rapid School Build program, the province is building new, more accessible and resilient learning spaces in as little as 71 days. That is what a DA-led provincial department does. It plans, it delivers, and it opens opportunity. And then, in KwaZulu-Natal, under DA MEC Martin Meyer, the Provincial Department of Public Works is focused on unblocking stalled infrastructure projects and getting infrastructure delivery back on track. Projects worth hundreds of millions of rands have been unlocked. Menzi High School in Umlazi, delayed for years and disrupted by the construction mafia activity, has finally been delivered. That is what happens when a DA-led department focuses on outcomes rather than excuses. The contrast could not be clearer. In an ANC-run provincial department, a community petitions parliament because nobody in that provincial government cares to listen. In a DA-led provincial department, problems are identified and addressed before parents and learners, such as those at the Lorenzo Lesedi High School, become desperate. In an ANC-run provincial department, learners wait, but in a DA-led provincial department, learners learn. That is simply the difference. It's not about geography, it's not about demographics, but 100% about governance. Honorable members, President Cyril Ramaphosa encouraged ANC public representatives to learn from DA governments that are delivering results. And we agree with the President. Where the DA governs, we simply just govern better. The evidence is there for all to see. DA departments focus on delivery. DA departments focus on accountability. DA departments focus on results. So my challenge today is directed to every ANC MEC responsible for education and public works across South Africa. Learn from the best, learn from what works, learn from departments that deliver schools instead of reports, learn from departments that solve problems instead of explaining them. Now is the time for ANC-run provincial departments across South Africa to listen and to learn from the best.
Thank you, Honourable
Thank you.
Member. Your time has now expired. The ANC.
Sihlalo hloniphekileko malunga wonke weParlamente. The ANC leading the Government of National Unity supports the joint report of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education and Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure. This follows the petition dated 22 April 2025 submitted by Mr. N.P. Paramela on behalf of the school governing body of Lirutsi Lesedi High School in Northwest Province, calling for an urgent intervention in schools' dilapidated infrastructure. House Chair, we must confront the systematic failures that allow the facility to deteriorate. Second, district and provincial officials must be held directly accountable for neglecting their oversight obligation. Furthermore, we need to ensure that we empower our schools so that they are capable of handling preventative and minor maintenance before it leads to total dilapidation. We must encourage our communities to take responsibility to preserving and safeguarding public infrastructure from vandalism and damage. Consequently, we call upon the Minister of Basic Education, together with the Department of Basic Education in Northwest, in Northwest,
to resolve all outstanding infrastructure challenges at the school within the strict timelines. Furthermore, this intervention should not be limited to the Lisedi High School alone, but must be extended to all schools across the province facing similar infrastructure challenges. Additionally, the Northwest Department of Education must provide immediate financial management and governance training to SGP while ensuring that any future school restructuring strictly adheres to legal protocols. Our democratic government cannot tolerate classrooms with expired fire extinguishers, leaking roofs, broken floors, missing door, or non-compliant to electric systems. While we acknowledge that Lisedi High School has safely transitioned away from traditional pit latrines to operational VIP, precast waterborne toilets, our work is far from finished. In line with our manifesto, we remain resolute committed to eradicating sanitation backlogs, bridging the urban rural divide, rolling out nationwide school broadband to give every South African learner universal access to digital economy. Honorable House Chair, the right to dignity and quality education is non-negotiable. We cannot allow administrative delays or oversight failures to compromise the future of our children. As the ANC leading the government of national unity, we are drawing a line in the sand, demanding rigorous accountability, swift execution, and a renewed culture of service delivery across the provinces. Let this joint intervention at Lisedi High School stand as a clear template for what must be achieved nationwide. The people expect action and we must deliver. To my colleague from MK, I want to remind him that we are discussing Northwest here. We are not discussing Gauteng. I can see that you were misinformed. And to the one of DA, I want to remind him that the Minister for Basic Education belongs to DA, and he must not come here and grandstand with non-achievement. I thank you, Chair.
Order, honourable members. I recognise the Acting Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? The MK Party?
The MK Party rejects, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further objections? Without that objection, the report is agreed to. The Secretary will now read the fifth order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Transport on request by Minister of Transport to make recommendations regarding candidates for appointment to Transport Economic Council.
The Honourable Salamolela.
Chair, thanks very much. Chair, maybe as a starting point, Chair, maybe let me join the House and those who came here before me today to salute the generation of 1976 and all the martyrs of our revolution who perished before this moment of 1994, and use this platform to call on the youth of South Africa to register to vote. Chair, I'm introducing this report of Portfolio Committee on Transport on the selection of candidates of Transport Economic Council, and this report is formally supported by the African National Congress. The strict compliance with legal insight serving as a foundation for this support, and procedural requirements through the Economic Regulation Transport Act 2024, Act number 6 of 2024, is strictly adhered to in the report. Public announcement, longer nomination period, state security agency screening, verification, and CIPC directorship checks were all part of the procedures that took place in order to provide multi-house monitoring. The committee also complied with the duty to consult with the National Council of Province Select Committee. We must remember, honorable members, that the Transport Economic Council is crucial to South Africa because it creates for the first time a separate and independent appeal process for economic regulation of country's whole transportation sector, which includes roads, rail, and ports. This council acts as an independent organization tasked with conducting independent assessment, hearing appeals against decisions made by the Transport Economic Regulator, and providing main adjudicative oversight. This function is essential, honorable members, because it brings accountability and legal rigor to an industry that has historically been beset by monopolistic practices and inefficiencies. For example, it guarantees that pricing decision and third-party access to infrastructure are subject to unbiased scrutiny. They are subject to protecting users from unfair practices. The Transport Economic Council aims to boost investor trust, encourages fair competition, and eventually drive the efficiency required to reduce the high cost of logistics that is currently burdening South Africa's economy that we alluded to 2 days back when we discussed in Vote 1. By establishing a check of regulators' powers and providing a legal avenue for grievances. Inclusivity, meritocracy, and transparency was ensured through political balance, a multi-party panel which included the African National Congress, the Economic Freedom Fighters, Mkhonto weSizwe, and Rice Mzansi, conducted the interview and shortlisting process over the course of 2 days. Candidates' technical proficiency in engineering, in economic, in transport, and law was evaluated, and there were proactive risk management and governance. The committee's openness about possible conflicts of interest must be praised. The report displays ethical standards by identifying 3 candidates who have active directorship or jobs in the transportation sector and mandating future declaration, accountability, and is further strengthened by Minister's proposal for a probity test. I submit this report on behalf of the Portfolio Committee with the ANC support, and I salute the House. Thanks very much.
Thank you. There will be an opportunity for declarations. The MK Party.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The MK Party stands here to say it understands the process that has been legislated, but you cannot be the referee and the striker at the same time. Section 47.2 and 47.3 of the Economic Regulation of Transport Acts creates exactly that problem. They drag a parliamentary portfolio committee whose constitutional duties oversight over the executive into the executive's hiring process. The committee interviews, shortlists, and recommends candidates for the Transport Economic Council, and then must turn around and oversee those very same people. That is not accountability, that is institutional incest. Let us call it what it is. A committee that helps choose the candidate cannot later pretend to be an impartial watchdog over that same candidate. How do you scrutinize the person you helped put in the chair? How do you summon them before Parliament with a straight face when your own committee had a hand in that appointment? This is the constitutional equivalent of marking your own homework. The Constitution of the Republic is clear. Parliament oversees the executive, and the executive must appoint. And the two must not collapse into one another. Oversight requires distance, independence requires separation. But this process blurs the line until Parliament becomes part of the machinery it is supposed to monitor. If the minister wants advice, let her seek advice. If Parliament wants oversight, let Parliament oversight. But when the Portfolio Committee sits in interviews and then claims to supervise the results, we have crossed from democracy into confusion. Today it is the Transport Economic Council, tomorrow it will be every board, every council, every appointment process turned into a political saloon where oversight is traded for influence. And let us be honest, when the committee recommends more names than there are vacancies, the minister is then left to select from a parliamentary pre-screened list. That means Parliament has already narrowed the field, shaped the outcomes, and bled accountability. That process is not lawful in spirit, and we submit not lawful in constitutional substance either. Section 47(2) and Section 47(3), to the extent that they force Parliament into the executive recruitment room, are constitutionally suspect and should be reconsidered. Parliament must never become a recruitment agency for the executive. The MK party says keep oversight clean, keep appointments separate, and keep Parliament out of the minister's hiring desk. So the MK has thought about this for you. Amend it. Thank you. Vote MK.
The EFF.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The EFF approaches this report with a measure of caution. While the committee has completed the procedure prescribed by the legislation, the broader context within which these appointments are being made cannot be ignored. South Africa's transport sector remains characterized by inefficiencies and the continued dominance of private interest over the needs of ordinary citizens. The establishment of a capable and independent Transport Economic Council is therefore not a procedural exercise, but a strategic intervention that will shape the future of transport regulation in our country. Our concern, Chair, is that regulatory institutions in South Africa have often become vulnerable to capture, conflicts of interest, and undue influence from powerful economic sectors and ministers. The committee itself notes that some of these recommended candidates have active business interests that may intersect with the transport industry. While this does not automatically disqualify them, it does raise legitimate concerns that independence, impartiality, and public confidence in the work of the Council. Furthermore, the EFF remains concerned about the transformation in key economic sectors that continues to move at an unacceptable slow pace. The transport industry remains largely concentrated and structured to benefit a minority, while workers, commuters, and rural communities continue to face exclusion and poor service delivery. The TEC must therefore not become another institution that merely manages the status quo, but it must actively contribute towards dismantling barriers to economic participation and advancing a transport system that serves the people. Having said that, Chair, the EFF acknowledges that the committee has conducted a thorough and transparent process. The committee considered 73 nominations, shortlisted those candidates on merits, conducted interviews, and subjected the candidates to security and qualification verification. The recommended candidates bring expertise in transport, economic engineering, legal practice, and adjudication, which are critical for the successful functioning of the Council. For these reasons, while we maintain our concerns regarding oversight, transformation, and conflict of interest, the EFF does support this report, and we do expect that the Minister to ensure that the final appointments serve the people and not those white interests. I thank you.
The IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members in the House. The IFP welcomes selection of 11 potential candidates to the Transport Economic Council. We trust that the candidates' diverse expertise across multiple sectors will provide a beneficial. Their strength across legal, technical, and economic domain will grant the Council a nuanced perspective. This is essential given the complexity of transport-related issues. We note that the 3 candidates currently hold active employment that may be classified as falling within the transport industry. The IFP emphasizes the importance of the integrity and transparency in official appointments and will provide the close oversight to ensure that any conflict of interest are appropriately declared. The IFP supports the report, but urges the department to ensure that the final appointments are made within the good of South African citizens in mind. The Council must act as an impartial body that improves the efficiency of our nation's transport infrastructure, not one that undermines it. I thank you.
Thank you. The PI.
Egbare Prater, fellow members, the Patriotic Alliance support the Portfolio Committee's report on recommending candidates to the Transport Economic Council, the TEC. The TEC is not a ceremonial body. It is a strategic structure that shapes economic policies and safety and trade across South Africa. Therefore, appointments must reflect competence, integrity, and genuine transformation. We cannot continue to overlook the lived realities of the working class. Fana nabo koko, amachite kasi, nabo sisi that are using transport. Working class marginalized communities, especially the so-called colored communities, who suffer most from transport inequalities and remain excluded from strategic decision-making. Prater, die Patriotic Alliance praat stryd. Vir jare sit ons mense vas in 'n transportstelsel wat nie vir hulle werk nie. As die TEC nie mense insluit wat hierdie realiteite verstaan nie, gaan niks op die grond verander nie. We call for a representative, accountable TEC driven by transparent criteria. The final appointments must reflect the diversity and needs of the people who depends on the transport system every day. I thank you, Speaker.
Dankie. Die FF Plus. Action SA.
Honorable House Chair, the establishment of a credible, capable Transport Economic Council is essential to ensuring fair, transparent and evidence-based economic regulation within South Africa's transport sector. The committee undertook a thorough process in considering the nominations that are before us today. The candidates were publicly nominated, shortlisted, interviewed, and subjected to security screening and qualification verification. The committee further consulted with the relevant NCOP Select Committee before finalizing its recommendations. Important to note that the final list reflects a balance of expertise in transport, economics, engineering, law, and adjudication. These are precisely the skills that are required to guide a regulator that will have a significant influence on the future of transport infrastructure, investment, and competition in South Africa. At the same time, we note the committee's recommendation that the minister must conduct an additional probity assessment before final appointments are made. We note that the certain candidates that have interest linked to businesses operating within or potentially operating within the transport sector. Any conflicts of interest must be fully disclosed and managed in accordance with the law and the highest standards of governance. The success of Transport Economic Council will ultimately be measured not by composition alone, but by its independence, professionalism, and ability to make decisions that advance economic growth, improve efficiency, and serve public interest. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The ICDP, the UDM, RISE, BOSA, the ATM, Al-Jamaa.
Assalamu alaikum. Malipong. Transport is the livelihood of our economy, Honorable Chairperson. It connects people to opportunities, enables trade, facilitates tourism, and supports economic growth. The effectiveness of our transport sector depends not only on infrastructure and investment, but also on sound governance and expert oversight. as we consider the report of the Portfolio Committee on Transport regarding recommendations for candidates to be appointed to the Transport Economic Council, this is an important responsibility entrusted to Parliament to ensure that suitably qualified, experienced, and ethical individuals are appointed to guide economic regulation and policy within the transport sector. The Transport Economic Council has a critical role to play in promoting fairness, efficiency, competitiveness, and sustainability across various modes of transport. Its decisions and advice can have far-reaching implications for consumers, businesses, investors, and the broader economy. We therefore commend the Portfolio Committee for conducting a transparent and rigorous process in assessing the suitability of candidates and ensuring that the recommendations made are in the best interests of our country. As Parliament, our duty is to support institutions that strengthen accountability, improve service delivery, and advance economic development. We trust that those appointed will discharge their responsibilities with independence, professionalism, integrity, and a commitment to the public good. South Africa requires a transport sector that is efficient, affordable, accessible, and capable of supporting inclusive economic growth. The quality of leadership within our institutions remains fundamental to achieving these objectives. Al-Jamaah supports the adoption of this report and wishes the successful candidates well in their services to the nation. Strong institutions,
Thank you,
ethical
Honourable
leadership.
Member. Your time is now
Malibong,
expired. The NCC, the PIC, the UIT.
No declaration from UAT.
Thank you. Good. The DA.
Fellow South Africans, honored colleagues and members of the House, the Democratic Alliance welcomes this crucial milestone in South Africa's transport sector. The establishment of the Transport Economic Council under the Economic Regulation of Transport Act 24 represents a monumental shift. It is a change that can either help rescue our failing transport network sectors or trap them in a cycle of state-driven mediocrity. The DA's position on the final recommended list of 11 candidates submitted to the Minister of Transport is clear. Appointments to state bodies must be built entirely on merit, transparency, and a steadfast refusal to tolerate political favoritism. For too long, South Africa's critical state infrastructure, from collapsing rail networks to deteriorating roads, has suffered under the weight of political patronage. The DA has consistently fought to abolish cadre deployment in favor of merit-based appointments. The Transport Economic Council will act as a review body and a regulatory referee. It will oversee billions of rands in transport infrastructure and settle immense market disputes. Definitely not a resting place for political bodies. We look at the recommended list before us, led preferentially by qualified experts like Dr. Jackson Moyona and Mr. Percy Manzini. We stress that our criteria must remain uncompromisingly rigid. Every candidate must possess impeccable professional credentials and absolute independence. The DA has previously flagged structural flaws within the economic regulation of transport framework, particularly its potential for over-regulation and under-checked discretionary power. To counter this, the TEC requires an exact balance of technical skills. The law dictates that the Council must include robust experience in law, economics, accounting, and the transport sector itself. So during the shortlisting phase, our parliamentary team noted a worrying shortfall, an abundance of legal background, but a severe deficit in accounting skills. While we acknowledge the inclusion of highly skilled economists like Dr. Sean Miller and Mrs. Anshal Banparsat, the DA insists that future appointments must explicitly prioritize rigorous financial accounting expertise. Without deep financial scrutiny, this Council will struggle to curb the waste of public funds. Furthermore, the DA advocates for the highest standards of ethical vetting and public transparency. We must ensure that 5 nominees previously flagged as ineligible due to overlapping roles in the Transport Economic Regulator Board remain strictly excluded. Zero tolerance should apply for the dual membership or private corporate ties that stand to benefit the Council's rulings. The DA will attentively monitor the final selection process, while we must guarantee that no appointee possesses a conflict of interest and that could compromise the integrity of our transport sector. The DA believes that the TEC must not become a vehicle for heavy-handed state intervention. Instead, the newly appointed council members must adopt a pro-growth, pro-market approach. They must foster a fair private sector competition, protect independent operators, and minimize regulatory bottlenecks. We do accept the 11 recommended candidates as a functional baseline, but we issue a firm warning to the Minister. The DA will act as a steadfast watchdog in Parliament, and we will ensure that those appointed do serve the interest of South African public, not any political masters. Let us therefore build a capable, efficient, and clean state that gets South Africa moving again. I thank you.
The ANC.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, colleagues, Minister of Transport in absentia, we gathered here today to recommend candidate to the Transport Economic Council, which is a crucial advisory body that drives strategic growth and transformation in our transport sector. As the African National Congress, leading the government of national unity, we declare our support to the committee as we believe the evidence provided due process was followed. The best amongst the candidates were chosen. Economic Regulatory Act of 2024 states that TEC is an important organization. Economic control of freight, rail, transportation is part of its duty in order to promote investment, efficient and affordability in South Africa's logistic industry. The ANC is of the view that everything was fully constituted. Savumelana. We are aware that the regrettable delays since the 2024 Gazette note, this report offers a final tenable shortlist that adhere to parliamentary deadlines. The TEC play a very important role in shaping transport policies, fostering collaboration, and ensuring our infrastructure support economic development. For the Department of Transport, the TEC is a key partner in achieving its mandate to provide safe, sufficient, and sustainable transport system that connect people, goods, and services. By providing expert advice on the economic regulation, investment strategies, and innovation, the TEC help us navigate complex challenges and seize opportunity. For the South Africa, the TEC work impact on economic competitiveness, job creation, and social inclusion. Our transport network are the backbone of the economy, and the Council's recommendation will help us ensure the support growth, reduce cost, and improve accessibility. As we strive to increase trade, boost tourism, and create jobs, the TEC's input is invaluable. The need for the TEC is clear. Our transport sector must adapt to rapid technological changes, infrastructure demands, and environment challenges. This council brings expertise and stakeholder engagement to the table, ensuring our decisions are informed, impactful. Whether it is addressing congestion, improving public transport, or integrating new technologies, the TEC will help us make strategic decisions that benefit the country. The Department of Transport's mandate is to lead and regulate the sector in the national interest. The TEC is critical enabler in this mission. We urge the Minister to consider this recommendation and work with the Council to propel our transport sector forward, drive growth, transformation, and service delivery. A well-functioning transport Economic Council is essential for our country's progress. We look forward to the Minister's consideration and the Council's future work. The African National Congress affirms its complete support for the report of the Portfolio Committee on Transport on the request by the Minister of Transport to make recommendations regarding candidates for appointment to the Transport Economic Council dated May 26, 2026, which emphasized the legal compliance, strengthening vetting, merit-based diversity, transparency on conflict, and strengthening of transport's economic regulation. The ANC urge the House to approve this report and ask the Minister of Transport to take into account the 11 candidates on the preference list as submitted, with the option to conduct additional pro-Italy testing if needed in order to operationalize the Transport Economic Council in the public interest. The appointment procedure must now be completed as soon as possible. Ngempela savumelana. The MK savumelana. Honorable Ghana, through the chair, savumelana. EFF is not by accident. Ngempela savumelana, transparent and fair. IFP ngempela savumelana. It was transparent and fair. PA, you were not there. It's by mistake to come and read. FF is unfortunately there not. Action SA savumelana. No other words can take that. Al-Jama savumelana. Savumelana. UA80 is not by mistake that for the first time you are not coming here because savumelana. DA. The eliminating of black people to positions of responsibility is not cadre development, it's transformation. And cadreship is by choice and right. This is transformation. We are dealing with the legacy of apartheid. Savumelana. Thank you so much.
Honourable members, order. I now put the question before, honourable members, order. The question before the House is that the following candidates be considered for appointment to the Transport Economic Council in terms of Section 47(3) of the Economic Regulation of Transport Act 2024, Act number 6 of 2024. Dr. Shlingani Jackson Moyana, Mr. Percy Manzini, Dr. Sean Mfunza Miller, Advocate Lavandra Nanda Gopal, Ms. Anshal Maniparsad, Ms. Sinenshlanshla Tuleleni Mtembu, Ms. Tsakane Zwane, Dr. Malindi Joy Sundi Nehuleni, Dr. Bongani Dominique Mkoko, Ms. Penelope Ann Beck, and Advocate Derek Block. Are there any objections to the recommendation?
No.
There are no objections. Agreed to. The list of candidates will be forwarded to the Minister of Transport for consideration. Honourable members, we will now take orders 6 to 50 together as they appear on the order paper. These are reports of committees on budget votes. As has been the practice, there will be no declaration of votes on these reports. I will allow parties to indicate their objections to specific reports should they wish to do so by stating the order number of the report they wish to object to. I now recognise the Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move that the reports be adopted.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson. Please note the objection of all the reports by the MK Party.
The MK objects to all the reports. It is so noted. Honourable Member, EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Please note the objection of the EFF for all budget votes.
The objection of the EFF is noted. Any other objections? Honourable Mashlatsi.
Thank you, Chairperson. the UHT reject all the votes. Thank you.
The objection to all the reports by the UAT is noted. Any other objections? No other objections, and with those objections, these reports are agreed to. I now request members to stand and wait for the presiding officer and the mace to leave the chamber. That concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned.
Asivumelani.
Savumelana.
Bravo.